I think the first point is that the world is using a huge amount of energy. It's about 2,300 watts per person, man, woman or child. We're using it very unevenly, 50 times as much per head of capita person in the US as in Bangladesh, and it's going up. So this produces a problem. How are we going to produce all that energy, and how are we going to do it in an equitable way? In the developed world, we could use less, but we want the people in Bangladesh to enjoy a decent standard of life, the people in Africa and India and so on. If they're going to take more energy as well, it's very unclear where the energy can come from. And especially, it's unclear if we can do it at all while trying to respect the environment and reduce the amount of CO2. So we have a big, big challenge on our hands. I think it will be very difficult if that means maintaining our standard of living with the same amount of energy. I think we in the developed world could maintain our standard of living with a lot less energy. And we've somehow got to converge. Our energy use has got to go down and that in the developing world come up. The difficulty is, how are we going to do that? Because 80% of our energy comes from burning fossil fuels, oil, coal and gas. They're not going to be there forever. We can argue if they're there for 80 years, 60 years, 120 years, but definitely in 200 years they'll be gone. We've taken a few hundred million to accumulate by them, by the way, and now we're just burning them. So we're going to need to probably change our lifestyles, but definitely look for new clean sources of energy. The challenges, there are huge technical challenges, but the policy challenges and the question of will is even bigger. We're going to have to get some global consensus about exchanging carbon limits and bringing things down everywhere. I think on the technical side, what did emerge today is, I think, what many people have believed for a long time. There is no single solution. We can't afford to neglect anything that has a chance of making a substantial contribution. Of course, we should use renewables, but we should also try to make clean coal burning cleaner. We're going to use the rest of the world's coal. Let's try and do it, if possible, with capturing the CO2, but in any case, without reducing the pollution, which is killing people. We should go for everything. It's got to be a little bit of a mixture of everything. In particular, better efficiency. There's no question that we could use energy more efficiency. Yes, because the UK produces only a couple of % of the world's energy use and a couple of % of the world's CO2. So sometimes people say, well, there's no point doing anything. But I mean, every individual of the world would say just that. What I do makes no difference. So there's got to be a collective responsibility with international agreements, which are going to be very difficult to reach. I'm sure it is, because the attitude, no point the UK doing anything, it's so small it won't have an impact, is obviously, that's not quite as true. There is some point to the EU doing something. It's big enough to have an impact, and also as a trade bloc we can argue with others they should do it. Furthermore, by getting the same regulations across Europe, industry, commerce will accept that. They won't accept that the UK is suffering handicaps with relation to French, German, whatever industry, but maybe they will for the EU as a whole. I think that's correct, and I think the UK has had a big impact. I mean, the Gleneagles Summit, for example, convinced the International Energy Agency, which makes outlooks for the world, to take much more seriously asking itself, could we live with less energy, and come up with alternative scenarios, and even a beyond the alternative scenario. So the UK has taken a lead globally on putting this on the agenda. I think a lot of it's due to the chief scientist, David King. We are politically, but financially our program is about less than half that of Italy and France, and about a fifth or a sixth that of Germany. So I wish we were doing more financially as well, but we have been pushing the EU to put more money into it, and we are taking a lead politically in pushing for fusion to be developed much faster. Its potential is enormous. It's not the solution, but it could be a major part of the solution because it will be a steady source of baseload electricity, run round the clock, no interruption, unlike the wind or the sun or whatever, and you need some sources of power like that on essentially unlimited scale with unlimited fuel, I mean the scale you wanted.
No CO2, no pollution?
No CO2. The walls of the fusion reactor become activated, nuclear activation, but you can choose the material such that it's decaying away, it's halving the amount of radioactivity every 10 years, and in 100 years you could recycle it into a new fusion reactor. I think policy will only really change with political pressure, and I think it's happening. Obviously, David Cameron has seen that there are votes in it. Or maybe that's too cynical, maybe he's really convinced, but he wouldn't be going so strongly in that direction unless he thought there were votes in it, and we see Gordon Brown vying with him to outdo him. So this makes me hopeful. Whether when people see it's hitting their pockets they will go along with it, we will have to see, but I'm quite optimistic about it. The only thing that's slightly dangerous is that there is a feeling we've made up our will to do something politically, so we'll do it. The technical problems, although the political problems may be bigger than the technical problems are enormous, enormous, enormous. It's not obvious we can solve the problem. We probably can with the will, but let's not forget the technical problems. Nevertheless, the first thing is the political problems. But your point about galvanizing us across the other problems is well taken. I'm very excited by the fact that the fusion project, which we're undertaking now on a global scale, involves more than half the world's population. And if the world can get together to tackle global challenges in that case, maybe they can do it across the board, not just with energy, but with other problems. Yeah. I think just a feeling of optimism and that there was general agreement in the hall about the direction we need to be going in.